I hear
Okay.
you now. Perfect. There we
You,
go. I lost you for a sec, but we're back. Yeah.
and so,
I love your guard, by the way. You look great.
thank you. I have my space chef hat, but I wasn't sure if I was going to wear it on this very first episode.
That's perfect. That looks amazing.
And so I wanted to start this show with you. I'm so glad that you agreed to be a guest. I'm trying to
Thanks for
straighten my
thinking of
hat
me.
up. And the reason why is because I love food. A lot of my space friends love food. And so I wanted to connect with you about space and food and just a bite-sized kind of interview, nice and quick.
Oh gosh, yeah, I'm thrilled to be here. And I know we have so many amazing discussions and thoughts, and I can't wait to get started. So thank you.
Okay, so the
Okay.
first thing, tell the audience a little bit about each other. So tell us about you and why space. Why do you love space?
All right. So my name is Dr. Shawna Pandya. I am a physician. I'm based in Canada. I am a scientist astronaut candidate like Cyan with Project PoSSUM, which stands for Polar Suborbital Science of the Upper Mesosphere. And why do I love space? Oh my goodness. Why don't I love space would be a shorter question, but you're pushing the boundaries. You're contributing to the body of knowledge of what we know as humans. You're pushing the limits. We're contributing to what we know, what we've seen, where we've been, and then also in doing and expanding that knowledge base, bringing it back to benefit us on Earth. And we're pushing the limits. So that's why I love space.
Okay, so if you could go, which one of these places would you most want to explore? The moon, Mars, Earth, the International Space Station, or low Earth orbit? So going to like the, up on a suborbital flight.
Where is the all of the above option, Cyan?
Well, I know. I thought about that, and I thought, all of my friends, my space people will select all of the above. So I'm going to force you to
Yeah.
choose one.
Okay. Okay. So in my ideal world, so if I'm forced to answer a question, toss up between Moon and Mars, but here's why. So if in my mind, we have to go in a crawl, walk, run, fly type of manner to make ourselves safe to actually explore the furthest and most ambitious locales. And in doing so, to do that, we need to have test beds, successful test beds that are further than the Earth, but not too far that if we run into a major issue, we can't come home. That's why there's benefit to going to low Earth orbit, to the ISS, then to the moon, then Mars, and then why stop there? Why not the asteroids? Why not Europa? Why not Enceladus? So all of the above, but I know a lot of us in the space community are focused on going forward to the moon and then springboarding to Mars. And then as a physician with an interest in space medicine, there's so many questions I have about surviving and thriving on the moon and Mars. So toss up between those two, but let's push the limits and say Mars.
So you definitely would go to Mars.
Yeah, I mean, with the right crew, I would be thrilled. I would be, forgive the pun, over the moon to go to Mars.
Okay, so my big question is, what would you want to eat on the moon and Mars, and would they be the same thing?
Oh gosh, yeah. Okay. I have so many thoughts on this. That's a great question. Okay, so for those who are new to the principles of nutrition in austere environments in space, we look at certain criteria and check boxes that they need to fill. So when we look at nutrition on the International Space Station, this is a science. This is an exact science. You know, it has to be nutritious, it has to be delicious. It has to be something that astronauts will eat. And part of that is a product of being in microgravity. Our fluids shift. We become congested. We feel like we have a cold all the time. It becomes less flavorful, so we're less inclined to eat things because they might taste bland. So they have to be spicy. They have to be savory. They have to be lightweight because it costs a lot of money to send things up to space. They have to have a long shelf life. So, it has to be able to endure several missions. So things like oranges are actually treats that get sent out for Christmas or for Thanksgiving because they don't have that long shelf life, and they're actually quite heavy, which sounds funny to say. And then they have to be easy to prepare. So something that's just add water rather than, making a full 7-course Thanksgiving meal and like baking a turkey isn't really an option. So that's the groundwork of kind of what we're operating from. And then coming back to your question of what I would want to eat, anyone who's ever been on an analog mission knows that I'm simultaneously low maintenance and high maintenance, and that there's like 5 staple foods that I always have at hand. And if I have them, I'm happy. So that's trail mix, dark chocolate, protein bars, my instant coffee, almond milk mocha. That's kind of a luxury, and then yogurt. So obviously some of those things are more practical than others, but those are my staples. So if I could have dark chocolate on the dark side of the moon, how amazing would that be?
I was gonna say, so the one go-to would have to be the dark chocolate, I imagine.
Oh yes. Yes. Okay. And so, Cyan, I have a question for you. Please help settle an intellectual debate between my friends, my family, my analog crewmates. Is there a right temperature to eat at which you can eat dark chocolate? And choose wisely, because there is a correct answer to this.
Ooh, that's a good question. I mean, are we pairing this with a nice red wine?
Okay, if wine's an option on the moon, I would say yes. We should certainly look into the science of how the taste is altered in 1/3 and 1/6 gravity. Absolutely.
I think that because I actually like my chocolate to be cold.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So I actually put my chocolate in the fridge, and I like it to be crisp and cold. And then I would love that with a nice red wine that has been, it's set out and is breathing nicely, and just
there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. 2 out of 2 doctors surveyed agree. There is a correct temperature for dark chocolate, as well as 2 people with initials SP. 2 out of 2 surveyed agree. Cold dark chocolate. You heard it here first.
Okay, we have a comment from Brett who's watching. He says, if we are going to space, there better be a way to make chicken parmesan. Otherwise, New York Italians are out.
Oh, that's,
Right.
I mean, that's very fair comment, Brett. I'm a vegetarian, so I probably have less of an informed opinion on this. That being said, and Cyan, you know this as much, you've been a proponent of this, is that there's ways to make nutritious, delicious food with appropriate substitutions that we may not think about every day on Earth. And you have an entire cookbook on this. So
I do. It's behind me on this side right here, my Meals from Mars cookbook. But eggplant parmesan might be the way to go on that.
Yeah, and that's a great question. Like, what do we want, and then how do we substitute? And that's the exact same way I go thinking about space medicine, because the ideal case would be to just have another Earth with us, but we have constraints. So how do we work backwards, and how do we substitute? So same principles for space medicine, same principles for space cooking.
So, okay, now you're going to be, let's just say the moon is first, and you're on the moon, and you've got your dark chocolate. Who is enjoying that dark chocolate with you?
Oh goodness, there's so many. And so like you, Cyan, I've had the luxury of going on a few analog missions. I don't quite have the level of experience you do yet. I would like to someday. But I've been on 3 analog missions so far, both underwater, as well as to the Mars Desert Research Station. And you start to appreciate the value of a good crew. So there's certain crewmates from previous missions. We still talk every day. They're amazing. They're best friends. They're like family. I would love to have them in an expanded capacity. Definitely. And this isn't just self-interest. You need a crew physician, so you should bring someone medical.
And then, that person?
I would love to be that person. And then, I think the PoSSUM 13. So for those who don't know, a subset of our PoSSUM group is a group of 13 female scientist astronaut candidate ambassadors who are just rock stars in their own right. Each has an amazing story. Each has an amazing background. We all get along very well and inspire each other. So if I could have a dinner party on the moon with an amazing crew, including, the PoSSUM 13, that would be amazing.
Okay, I love how you're very diplomatic. You didn't pick just one person. And so, well, what if you could have a
that's the Canadian coming out. I can't help it.
But what if you could have a special person, like anybody in the world, to have like a special, dinner chat with on the moon? Like they could go and specifically be with you for one meal.
Gosh, oh my goodness, there's so many. Living or dead, or
Anybody, well, preferably living, because then
okay.
maybe we can make it happen.
Okay, so there's so many amazing people. I think the Canadian astronauts have certainly long inspired me. Definitely, I was inspired by Dr. Roberta Bondar growing up. I don't know if she'd want to come to the moon, but she's certainly welcome. Chris Hadfield has been another inspiration, just the nicest guy alive, and also I assume he has a very practical arsenal of skill sets to help survive if we decompressed all of a sudden. So I'm going to go with the Canadian Astros.
Oh, that sounds great. And so practical. And I bet they would want to go because neither of them have been to the moon. So that would be like, come along, I'm going.
Come with me. We're going on a field trip.
So I've got to ask you, you kind of hinted at this a little bit, but which one of these are you? Are you a cook, a baker, a takeout person, or your significant others or friends are feeding you?
Okay, so I'm going to give you a very astro mentality answer, whatever the situation requires. So when I'm living alone, I love making massive, proteinaceous, delicious meals, especially after a massive workout. I am a master of the monster salad that's very proteinaceous. So that's my favorite. Currently in the pandemic situation, I'm in with my folks. My mom is the world's best cook, says everyone who's sampled her cooking. She makes amazing Indian vegetarian food. And lucky for me, she loves feeding me. So my mom's cooking is top notch. I don't think there's very few people who can compete with that.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, and then I bake less, but when I do, it's just there's a certain comfort and joy and feeling associated with baking. So I do that less, but when I do, it's always associated with warm fuzzies. So that would whatever the situation requires. If it requires me to simply be fed and eat, I'm okay with that.
I went to India for the first time at the beginning of 2019,
Amazing.
and I didn't know. Food-wise, I'd never eaten a lot of Indian food, to my dismay, because it was the best food. I loved it. And it's one of those things where I've traveled a lot, and Italy is the place where I just go multiple times because I could just eat my way across the country. And now India is up to that, or if not higher, in my food culinary.
So what part of India were you in?
I was in New Delhi. I was in Bangalore. I was in Mysore, Bangalore.
Oh
New
yeah,
Delhi.
okay, that's amazing. So here's the secret that I feel like I should clue our audience in on is that Indian food is like it's like saying if you were an alien, I'm going to go visit Earth, but we're on Earth. It matters, right? So there's South Indian food, North Indian food, Central Indian food. There's Gujarati food. There's Punjabi food. So there's so many. You can't just say Indian food. And then the other secret is when you go out to eat, you have to be careful where you go because traditional commercial Indian food is made to enhance the flavor. So it's very salt, oil, and cream heavy, and then you can't eat for a day afterwards because it's so filling. But true Indian food isn't meant to be that heavy. So when you're looking for your choice Indian food place outside of India, you want to go for the hole in the wall, mom and pop type shop that just relies on traditional home cooked Indian food, and that's where you get the true authentic Indian food. As I'm sure you've experienced. Like, did you have a favorite? Did you have a favorite that came out from?
Okay, I gotta say that paneer on the street.
Yes. I was hoping you would say that. Oh my God, paneer's the best.
Unbelievable. I was like, what is this magic substance?
Paneer is delicious. Yeah. So for those who don't know, paneer is like this very proteinaceous, high protein cheese-like substance. You kind of marinate it in whatever curry you're making. There's something called palak paneer, which is spinach paneer. And then here's a really interesting thing I've noticed is that every culture in one way or another tends to evolve its own form of cheese. And so when I was my discovery, like I was saying about Indian food, was in Mexico when it's like, whoa, the world is holding back on us when it comes to what Mexican food actually is. So one of my roommates from the master's program at the International Space University is from Guadalajara. He's Mexican. So he truly introduced me to Mexican food, and their version of paneer is panela. And so it's this very, very high protein cheese, and it, comes in your avocado potato soup. It's delicious. We had cactus smoothies. So, we're just exposed to the tip of the iceberg when it comes to true Indian and true Mexican food.
You are speaking my language. I backpacked. One of my first trips that I ever did was a 2-month backpacking trip through Mexico, and the food, again, just loved it. And so, when you, is that one of the dishes that your mom makes a lot is with paneer?
When she knows, so my mom is amazing, and she knows what my favorite foods are. So she knows I am a sucker for paneer. So she makes an amazing, bell pepper paneer curry kind of with cashews. It's delicious. It's amazing. There's so many ways you can do paneer. We've experimented with it. We've used tofu as a substitute, which if you have the right firmness, and if you marinate it just right, it can be used. You can make it with spinach. You can use it as a kidney bean and mushroom curry. There's so many ways to use it. It's delicious. So
you're making me hungry.
But for those of you who are at home, just feel free to experiment. Like that's the joy of cooking, is that you experiment, and then just like a scientific discovery, you take notes and then just say what could be done better next time, and experiment with paneer.
That's a great point, because I'm working on another kind of recipe contest. Now, my first one was for the Meals for Mars, but this one's Meals for Earth because we're all in isolation. And I really hope you will submit a recipe and sharing one of these amazing dishes.
Because I will, but I'll credit my mom because she's the mastermind. But yeah,
you can put both of your names in as a credit. Awesome. And so
there's still time. There's still time to apply for the Meals for Mars contest, right?
Yep, it's open until April 30th. And so please submit something, because you are making everybody listening hungry. And what I love is that it's international, and the whole idea is to get flavors and tastes from people all over the world and coming together with our love of food while in isolation.
I will definitely add that to the list.
You're already busy schedule.
Yeah, I'll submit it for sure, because I think the world deserves to know about my mom's cooking. Like she should have her own cooking show.
Oh, I totally understand. My mom was also an amazing cook, and so I often make a lot of her dishes. So I'm going to ask you your favorite type of food. Is it Indian or is it something else?
Oh gosh. So I mean, I grew up on Indian food, and for me, so this kind of comes back to the socio-cultural comfort aspect of food, and why it's been so easy for me to be a vegetarian, because I grew up on a diverse array of delicious, aromatic, savory Indian food, whether it's lentils, curries, variants thereof. And so Indian food is definitely a staple. I could live on that easily, just because it's what I've grown up with and it's what I've learned to replicate. But it's, the other part is just like, where does the food come from and what does it remind you of? So my mom has experimented. She makes amazing pizza, lasagna, Spanish rice, and it's the memories associated with that. And, the joy of replicating that when you're away from home, being like, okay, it's my blood. I can do this. It may not go well the first time, but that's what the joy of cooking is.
Well, and I think that's one of the big things about when you do these analog simulations and having a diverse crew. And if you're able to do some creative cooking, it's really interesting to see the diversity that can come along with your crewmates and the amazing dishes that you can share.
Absolutely. And so it's funny that you bring that up, because I see Alejandro makes a comment about space kombucha. And actually one of my crewmates, he was very deliberate about this. He brought kombucha that we brewed as a crew. He took us through it. He took us through the science of it. And then he let us experiment by making your own flavors based on the spices and flavors we had available. So I made like a honey, lemon, ginger kombucha with raspberries in it. You know, people made mango blueberries. So we did manage to brew kombucha on Mars, even though there was gravity. And then coming back to your question, you know, it's so important for a variety of reasons. Even on an analog crew, everyone's going to have their dietary restrictions, but there is that comfort and that crew building that comes with building, with baking and cooking and preparing a meal together. And so we would try to switch up the cooking rotation on my last rotation, and we had some excellent cooks. And then, you know, it's also the joy of like bringing your own flavor and your own experience and sharing that with the crew. And like we were talking about the memories and the experience of how you got to be that cook with the crew. So definitely was a bonding activity.
Oh, it so is. I've got fond memories of high seas and cooking with my crewmates there. And so hopefully I'll have some of them on the show. And so now, yeah, Jahira and I, we cooked so much together. We had Meals for Mars. That's what the cookbook is based on. But I ran a cooking show called Meals for Mars. And so we were cooking up all kinds of stuff.
That's amazing. I can't wait to see that episode.
I want to ask you, what would be your go-to drink in space? And I'm going to throw some out there for you to think about. So there's beer, wine, tang, juice, water, spirits like neat bourbon or whiskey, mixed drinks or cocktails. Like if you're a margarita person, coffee, tea, energy drinks, soda, or something I haven't mentioned. So you can only pick one.
Okay, so I'm gonna share some stories about how this applies. So anyone who's been on an analog mission with me kind of jokes about what a lightweight I am. And so when we go for a celebration after the mission, they joke that they'll bring their thimbles, which may or may not be an accurate description. So I think to be able to perform on the mission, we'll stay towards the non-alcoholic beverages. And then coming back to the comfort foods. So I start every single day with homemade almond milk mocha with instant coffee, as you can see in my mug here. And that's how I started today. And so knowing what we have the luxury of bringing in as a comfort food really helps. So on many of my previous missions, just even having the instant coffee and then the almond milk while it lasts, knowing that, you know, you may not have it for the entirety of the mission, is just a tremendous like, okay, I'm ready to start the day. And then this is going to make me sound very extra, but I love club soda. And on previous missions, on 2 of my past 3 missions, crewmates, you know, just surprised me and brought some in, which was awesome. In space, probably not practical. Birthday in microgravity doesn't quite work out, so we'll probably have to leave that at home. But if I could have my instant coffee, I'm set. I'm good.
Well, maybe Mars, you know, with 1/3 Earth gravity. And
I would be happy to run that experiment. I will be happy to be your test subject.
I love the fact that you also mentioned the instant coffee, because that was really the first widely distributed freeze-dried product. And so when people are thinking about that shelf-stable ingredients, fruits, meats, and vegetables, things like that for space, a lot of times people don't realize that instant coffee is freeze-dried.
I learned that from your last presentation, and I was thrilled with that. And also, I felt mildly vindicated because I have many friends that are coffee snobs that, you know, threaten on a regular basis to end our friendship based on the fact that I love instant coffee. But you know, if it's good enough for space, it is good enough for me.
Mm-hmm. Do you have a favorite meal of the day?
Oh gosh,
brunch, lunch, dinner, late night desserts, late night snacks, snacking all day.
all food is good food. You know, I love supper because that's my biggest meal of the day. I usually have a massive workout ahead of time. In non-pandemic times, I'm working out 2 hours a day. In pandemic times, an hour to an hour and a half. So by the time dinner time rolls around, I'm ready for all the calories. And that usually tends to be the most elaborate meal of the day, the most delicious meal. So that's definitely love dinner. And then breakfast, I have my morning ritual. I have my instant almond milk mocha with instant coffee, as well as a protein bar. And that's just a ritual that wherever I'm traveling, you know, I've learned to bring protein bars with me. So it just brings that continuity, whether I'm underwater, whether I'm on Mars, whether I'm in across the world giving a talk, whether I'm going about my daily routine and starting in clinic. Just having that continuity is a huge psychological boost.
That's a really good point. Thinking about how food and continuity interact with each other, and being able to have a routine or a habit, and so that it's because that brings comfort a lot of times, especially when in a stressed situation.
Totally. That's a great point. And I have to give credit to one of my crewmates on my underwater mission. He was our executive officer, Paul. His whole job when he was in the military was logistics. So he could see, it was like the Matrix. He could see logistical issues that were light years away that none of us mere mortals could even contemplate. And so he knew the value of all of these creature comforts. And so he planned. He, under the guise of saying, guys, give me your emergency contacts, I'm just going to test them out. And when he did, he would call our significant others, our parents, and say, hey, what's so-and-so's comfort food? And then, he'd bring like their favorite things. And so just the awe factor, like that he would go and do that, and then just the psychological boost of having that continuity, it was just icing on the cake for an awesome mission.
Is that the most extreme that you've experienced, the Aquarius Reef Base?
So that mission, I have experienced Aquarius Reef Base for overnight for one day, but that was at surface pressure. The underwater mission was at Jules Undersea Lodge for 5 days at 21 feet. That would be the most confined to date. I definitely would say no to more extreme environments. So if you want to go to Antarctica, the Arctic, the moon, give me a call.
That's awesome. I want to go there with you. And so we're coming up to our last few minutes in our snack, space snacks, nice bite-sized. And I wanted to ask you, did you bring a snack? What are you snacking on? Do you have anything?
So I did bring some tea. This is holy basil homemade tea. My mom's been perfecting it. This is how meticulous she is. She grows her own holy basil plants, and then she takes the leaves. I don't know, you probably can't see, but there's holy basil leaves in there. And then she likes it because she believes in the Ayurvedic properties and thinks there's a health and immune component. I haven't seen the evidence to that, but she, in order to get me to drink it, has perfected it, worked on making it delicious, and that's why I love it. So, we put lemon, we put honey. She's been experimenting with apple cider vinegar. So that is my snack. I drink this because it is delicious, and I will grudgingly admit that she was right. I will drink this, and I've come to ask for it.
I've invited you to come visit me, but I think I'm going to come visit you, mainly your mom.
Always welcome. Party at the Panda place. Please come.
So we can cook and talk space. All right. So my last question, I'm trying to think of which one I want to ask, is your favorite celestial object.
So many to choose from.
Yes.
I like the nebula. I would say the spiral arm of the Milky Way. Like when you are in a dark enough locale that you see all the stars jump out at you, and you see that smattering of space stuff. It's just you feel like you're, like Carl Sagan said, that we are all just bits of stardust. And whether you've been in the Utah desert, whether you've been in some of the best campgrounds with the best night sky, it's just it's impossible to look at that and not feel peace in the universe.
Well, this has been a really great first interview. This was my first ever Facebook Live interview. You made it so easy, and thank you.
This was fun. Thank you so much. I'm so excited to see all of the future episodes. So thanks for having me.
I'm going to split our screen here, and then I'm going to just do a little disclaimer for the audience. And let me show this, and hi.